Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to the Titusville Code Board. Please silence your cell phones at this time, including the board. Okay. The city desires to accommodate persons with disabilities. Accordingly, any physically handicapped person pursuant to Chapter 286.26 Florida statutes should at least 48 hours prior to the meeting submit a written request to the chairperson that the physically handicapped person desires to attend the meeting. Any person who decides to appeal any decision of the Code Enforcement Board with respect to any matter considered at this meeting will need a record of the proceedings, and for such purpose may need to pursue a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, which record includes the testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is to be based. Any person or defendant who requests to review or object to any exhibits presented to the Code Enforcement Board by the City of Titusville prior to submission to the Code Enforcement Board must stand and state their request to review the exhibits prior to review by the Board at the time their case or agenda item comes before the Board for hearing. Any person found to be in violation of the City of Titusville Code of Ordinances and given a time frame in which to comply shall, upon compliance, be responsible for contacting the Code Enforcement Supervisor for an inspection to verify said compliance. The violation will not be considered to be in compliance until the Code Enforcement Supervisor is notified and verifies compliance. All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Deborah, can you please swear in the staff?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from from November? I need a motion on the floor, please.
Move to approve the minutes of the meeting of Monday, November 12th, 2018.
Okay. Second? So, okay. Roll call vote, please.
Member Ozon?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Monis?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay. Ms. Chelsea, would you like to start, please, ma'am?
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Welcome back. The first case on your agenda is an older case, number 16-115, for the property located at 5001 River Edge Drive. The former code enforcement officer on this case, Bob Crisco, has since retired, and the code enforcement manager, Glenn Tullison, will be presenting partial testimony regarding this case. And I've also invited the city's building department, Paul Bellington, to provide additional testimony regarding this case. I know the owner of the property is also here, and you, at your last meeting, determined that this property should be corrected by satisfying the 2 code enforcement violations on the record regarding the International Property Maintenance Code, subsection 304.10, stairways, decks, porches, and balconies, as well as subsection 304.2, the protective treatment paint. At the September 10th, 2018 Code Board meeting, this board ordered the respondent to correct the violations by 9 a.m. on January 6th, 2019. And as those violations have not been corrected, I have the testimony of staff to provide you, as well as the presentation from the owner. And after that point, I will turn it over to the board for your final determination on this case. I'd like to first invite Mr. Tullison to present his PowerPoint.
Good afternoon, and again, this case originated in 2016 with Bob Crisco as the officer. There were 2 violations found. One was sections 304.10, stairways, decks, porches, and balconies, and protective treatments. It should be noted that it was first heard October 10th, 2016, where the board did find violation of the city codes on the property. And again, starting from there, our case was continued from January the 9th of 17, June 17 to December, December to June. June was continued to July of 18. July 18, we continued on till August the 13th of 18. August 13, we then continued to September the 10th. And as the Assistant City Attorney said, that at that meeting, the property was still in violation, and the board ordered the respondent to correct the violation on or before 9 a.m. January the 6th, 2019. If the violations were not corrected, a fine of $50 per day per violation beginning on December the 12th, 2016 would be imposed. And the property is still in violation. Officer Frank Lewis took these pictures on December the 19th of 18. You can see we're still missing the balconies and porches, the stairway. Here's another one that Officer Lewis took on December the 19th. And then this was another one that shows some of the wood and some jacks that are on the load-bearing side. And then the correction date, as you recall, was the 6th of 2019. These photographs were taken 2 days later, which was January the 8th of 2019. As you can see, they're still missing the balconies and the protective treatment. And here's just an additional picture. Again, this all started about the repair of the balconies. This case initiated there in 2016 and is here we are today. There have been 2 permits applied for. One was applied for in 16, which took him through 2018, which then expired because of no inspections. He had to reapply. They now since holds that permit, and he's still working on it. The building permit here will be to talk about any of the inspections under the new permit. And so with that, Mr. Paul Ballington from the building department, if you'd like to talk about current inspections and stuff.
Glenn, before you
Ma'am.
go all the way back, what was the first date that this was not to?
October 10th of 2016.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
You can leave a photo up of the
I was
exterior. Great.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon.
So I did some research on the permit before I came in here. Just wanted to let y'all know that the last inspection was done November 26, 18. It was approved, the electrical service change, and a footing pre-pour was approved October 31st, 2018. And the permit doesn't expire until May of 2019, this year. That's about all I got.
We have 2 sections of the International Property Maintenance Code that are under review for this board to determine whether this continuing violation exists. One of them is 304.10, stairways, decks, porches, and balconies, which I'll read to you. Every exterior stairway, deck, porch, and balcony, and all appurtenances attached thereto shall be maintained structurally sound in good repair with proper anchorage and capable of supporting the imposed loads. This case originated because the balconies and stairways on the exterior of the building were in disrepair, were then removed, and the building permit is including all of the work done to renovate this structure. The reason I bring that up is just to point you back to this case where it is in violation because the progress has not been completed since the case has started. The case started with this rehab of this particular property, and Glenn, I think you have a photo that shows the exterior wall where the balconies would be a bit better than this one. My question for the building department is whether a balcony is required with the way that this building is currently designed, with the windows and the exterior layout of this building. Do you require stairs from this building to be constructed? And as a component of that building permit that's on file, we know that they're included within the scope of the work, and since that's the plan that's in place, would you agree that without those components currently being there, the balcony and exterior stairway, which are within the scope of the permit, would you agree that not having them would demonstrate noncompliance with 304.10?
Yes, ma'am. I would say that it stands in compliant with the property maintenance code. I can't tell you off the top of my head if that's required by the Florida building code. Like if they built that building today, I can't tell you. I'd have to go look at the code book and tell you if that'd be required. I don't think it is, because we have plenty of, structures that are tall enough that don't have balconies, as long as the window height is at the right height. I know there's a toddler tipper rule, has to be at a certain height once you get above a certain elevation. But yeah, he is, that is covered underneath the scope of the permit, so.
So in order for the property owner to come in compliance with the International Property Maintenance Code, he would need to finish the scope of the work that's in the building permit, is my point. From the original case being started in 2016 in disrepair, here we are still, that case has not been finished.
Okay, I have a question. On the building permit, the original building permit, was it for replacement of the porch and/or balcony?
Yes,
Yes,
it was.
Okay,
and there's a copy of
Those right here.
the card right there.
okay.
I'll read you the exact scope that's on the permit card. Alteration, replace as-built second and third story porches, add roof over third story porch, add stair from second story porch to ground, rebuild south wall to which porches are attached, revision, add electrical work as shown. So he submitted revision, doing electrical work, which is fine, but that is the scope of work that the permit is on.
And this is since 2016.
The issue date for this permit was July 6, 2018, but
It's on the back.
the original permit was, yes, AN 16, 162, which was applied for,
No, that's the
I don't know, this is the 2018 permit.
This
I don't know.
16.
Yeah, the original permit was applied for and issued in 2016. Yeah, there we go. Okay, the original permit was applied for in May of 2016, issued December 2nd, 2016, and it expired in June of last year.
Because if you recall, at that hearing, the permit had expired, and they said he would have to reapply.
Right, okay. The permits are good for 1 year,
6 months.
6 months.
The way it works is as long as they're making good progress, and especially in his case, he's got plenty of inspections. Every time he passes an inspection, he's going to get another 6 months. So,
Okay.
yeah. And then there is the odd case where it takes us, a long time and code cycle will change. So they might have to update their plans and what they're doing and bring that into us.
So we've already found a continuation, a continued violation, so what is the next step? What is the city looking for?
Before you make your final determination, the owner of the property would like to make his comment to you all. He has a presentation that he's prepared, and I would like to let the board decide whether to hear that case next.
We want to keep in mind, this is a compliance hearing and not
Not a case?
a finding of violation hearing. So the issue before the board is whether the respondent has come into compliance with your previous order.
Do you have any further questions for city staff? Thanks, Paul.
Chelsea, his presentation is what, on what he's planning on doing, or why he's not in compliance?
It's a summary of where he is from July of 18 to January 14th of this year.
Ms. Scott, how long is your presentation?
It's 29 pages, but I can make it as long as you want.
Uh-uh.
It's just a bunch of pictures.
Could you tell us why you're not in compliance? Could you speak for the podium?
You have to be sworn in first.
Let me go ahead and swear you in, sir. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I have a question, just why it's still not in compliance at this time?
I think it's a much larger job than the board realizes, and I was hoping that this presentation could show that. I've done it verbally in the past, but this has pictures in it that show just how complicated it is.
Well,
Obviously, I should have
Probably could have
chosen-
been like torn down and rebuilt in 2 years.
It would have been easier to build a new house. The existing structure is from the 80s, it's pre-Andrew, and I'm trying to bring it up to current wind strength, which isn't required by code, and it's involved a lot of rebuilding of the existing structure. If we could just look at the first page, I could show you what the scope is of the structural upgrade.
The only thing we're determining is whether he's in compliance.
Correct.
That's the only thing, okay? And what motion do you use to find him in or not in compliance that we have?
If you look at number 2.
And this is the same motion that we'd be making from the October meeting.
Well, these are new motion forms, but this one applies to if you're going to find a non-compliance with your prior order.
So I guess the only thing that we would want to hear is how you think that you're in compliance.
I agree that I'm not in compliance, but I would like to point out that I tried to do this before the deadline in December, and the meeting was canceled due to training.
Well, I think that we all at least asked at one point how long you think you needed, and the vagueness of that helped, made it a little harder for us to figure out how much time to give you.
In July, this board asked me how long it would take, and I said 12 months. I'm on that schedule. I will be done in July.
Madam Chairman, I'd move that this board give the gentleman 5 minutes to make his presentation.
Okay. You getting 5 minutes?
Okay. Page 2 shows where the house is.
I gotta get to it.
Oh,
And then you have it up there as well.
oh.
Thank you.
Richard Gaudio, 5001 River Edge Drive, Titusville, Florida. Are we ready? Okay.
Go ahead.
This is just a summary of the work. There's a lot of work that's not shown here. As I said, I wanted to present this in December before the deadline. Page 2 shows where my house is, and the yellow arrow from 5001 is pointing at the southeast corner, and you can see the porches there. They run the full width of the south wall, and they wrap around the east side. So all this work is basically behind those porches in those walls on all 3 levels and in the ground. The next one shows the scope of the work with the porches and the ground removed. This is a remodel in addition to a structural upgrade. We made 3 decisions that have caused a lot of engineering work to have to be done. The yellow wall is the first floor, and it has large openings in it, and because of the wind load, those large openings required me to use steel reinforced concrete, and a block wasn't strong enough. The second one is on the level above, the frame above. Oh, incidentally, everything that's gray is not part of my work. The brown, everything that's brown and yellow is new. So in the level above, the second story, the porch on the east side isn't wide enough, and so we've inset the exterior wall, and that produced a cantilever above it to hold the roof up, and that's been a challenge. Now, the third is we're going to have 10,000 pounds of rainwater on the third story porch, which has put a lot of load on the structure that you see here. The wind from the east, if you use 150 miles an hour, the loads are so high that the house is only 20 feet wide and it's 3 stories high. So in order to prevent it from tipping over or sliding, we put these helical piers into the ground, which go 14 feet into the ground. They're made out of steel. That's the blue screws that you see sticking out of the bottom of the foundation there. So the next page shows where I was shortly after the July meeting. We poured this wall foundation. You can see the square caps at the top of the helical piers that are embedded in the foundation. There's a lot of steel in there too. Those stirrups are 9 inches on center. This is a picture before the pour looking down into the foundation form. You can see the foundation rebar, and you can barely see the helical pier caps there. I had to support the wall rebar on the inner form, which was built in order to hold them up while I poured the concrete into the foundation. Page 6 is we're pouring the foundation. We used one of these concrete buggies to get the concrete around back. We had to remove a tree.
Mr. Gaudio, can you get to the point why you're not in compliance? How you expect to get to compliance without going through detail? We're not builders. We're here to find out if you are or not in compliance as of today. That's what we're needing to know. And I know what you're saying, but the planning committee or the development, they know all this more than we do. We're here just to figure out one thing, compliance or non-compliance.
Okay, things are going real well, actually. I mean, when I got the letter in September, things were really coming together, and so I thought that the best path for me to go was to get these 3 concrete milestones done, which are the 2 foundations and the wall, and then I could present in December and show a lot of progress. That's what I was planning on doing before the meeting was canceled. With this concrete, all the concrete's done. All the concrete is behind me, and most of the where it meets the old work is also behind me. I think most of the unknowns are now behind me. And I have a contractor now that does what I ask him to, and I think, well, I know, I will be done by July.
In a purely hypothetical question, let's say that we agree with him that he may be done in July. Can we even change what we've already established?
Well, sure, you can. I don't think that's recommended. As I've suggested before, you already have given him an extensive period of time to come into compliance, and to give him an additional period of time, it just wouldn't be consistent with your last order that gave a date certain and then a date for imposition of the fine.
Definitely 2 different messages, which is why I want to know if that's even possible. Can you even?
You can, but I would not recommend it.
Go ahead.
Does it matter that I tried to do something before the deadline? I tried to talk before the deadline?
I'm just speaking as an individual, because
Oh.
I have no idea what the group feels, but I do see more progress here than what you presented to us for the last several.
Yep.
I believe you that you would have liked to have been here in December to give us a progress report. I also know that we all had a hard time making a decision in September because you weren't here with us to discuss what our options were. And some of us don't feel 100% about the way that that all went down, but I know we all think that this has gone way too long.
Yeah,
So,
the September meeting, was I supposed to be there? I understood from the July meeting that the reason I was sending progress reports to code enforcement was so that I wouldn't have to come and present the progress reports myself.
And
well, we got the progress report, but there was no progress. And so that's what the information that we had.
At the Thursday before the September meeting, I talked to Bob Crisco in my driveway, and he said that the progress was obvious and that, quote, "it should be continued," end quote. I know he said that because I went home and wrote it down. So there was no reason for me to think I should come.
But we never thought it was gonna be 2.5 years. 2.5 years that we're allowing you to continue on without being in compliance, that we cannot do that to people. That's just, you can't do that.
I obviously, I shouldn't have tackled so much scope to begin with, but I did bring that up at the very first meeting. I was standing right here and I asked, should I do a quick repair to get into compliance, or should I do the structural upgrade that I wanted to do for years?
Well, actually, maybe I wasn't
Well-
here at that time, but
well-
that's not what we got. We
With
were
us not
specifically.
being engineers, we don't know what your scope is. I mean, pouring a load of concrete is one thing, but doing what you're doing is totally something else. That is not our bailiwick. Our bailiwick is to determine whether or not you're in compliance or non-compliance at this point, and how long it's gonna take you to get to where you need to be in compliance, be finished. You've got neighbors that are upset, you've got a homeowners association upset, you got a code board up here that's upset, and a planning department upset, so we gotta get something done here.
And the way I remember it, we were all saying, how long do you need? So we knew how long to extend this, and it was very vague. It wasn't a direct, I need 1 year. It was very vague and a list that we couldn't possibly tally for a time frame whatsoever.
I do have some evidence, not evidence, but facts about property value that contradict the statement that I'm lowering property value.
I didn't say anything about lowering property value. I'm not saying anything about property values.
Oh, okay.
We never heard
Well,
that.
and in its current state, you could be. In
And
its
I don't-
current state, it's a construction site, that if somebody wanted to buy something next door, that would definitely be a determining factor.
Well, a house just sold 32 feet from me, right in the top of the range.
But that's not what you're doing, that's the market. That's what the market's doing. They're, that's not because you have construction in the back did that
Well,
increase.
With the exception of the vengeful neighbor that started all this, everyone who's come by has expressed appreciation for the work. They see what I'm doing. They see that the building will be stronger, and I'm the windward end of the building that'll keep everybody else from getting blown down,
But that's not,
too.
our job is not to say that's what you're doing. Our job is not to say you're doing a big job and you're making it a lot better. Our job is to say, yes, you're in compliance, or no, you're not in compliance. That's all we're sitting here today to do.
So I missed the boat. I could have, if I'd have been there in December, would it?
It would not, it's the same answer. Your balcony's not up, your stair rear's not up. So as far as I can tell, you're not in compliance.
Mr. Gaudio, may I ask you a question? Did you self-perform most of this work?
I did all of it. I couldn't get a guy to do the concrete. I had to learn how to design the
Oh, okay.
concrete. Yeah,
And the scope of the work has expanded.
it has.
So, it's my opinion you should have hired the contractor.
I tried. I finally have one, I think. Well, I know. I have a contractor that will do it right.
And what is he telling you is how long that's gonna take?
He agrees that we can be done by July.
Last year, we suggested you get a contractor, and you said, I kind of want to do this all by myself, and we said, but that'll take you longer, and you won't be in compliance, and you said, well, that's the way I want to do it.
No, that's not, I don't think so. I've been trying to get a contractor the whole time. Every piece of work I've done, I've tried to hire somebody to do it.
But you also had to say, you also said that certain things you had to do, you had to make your own machine for it, or template or whatever, because nobody else had it, because you're doing a lot of, you're doing a very big upgrade is what you're doing.
I am. It's very non-standard. Nobody does this strength.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But we're in a quandary up here as to what we're going to do to get you to where you need to be without charging you an arm and a leg from here to Timbuktu and back.
And to do right by the city and your neighbors and the residents.
I really am confused. These fines, they're consistent with neglect.
They're consistent with
No.
safety
This
standards.
is the opposite of neglect.
No, they are associated with the Florida statutes, not necessarily neglect. There is neglect, but we're not looking at neglect on you. There are other fines that get attributed to the Florida statutes of not being in compliance. Can you explain any better?
No, I think you did a fine job. It's not necessarily a neglect issue. It's a safety issue and it's a compliance with code issue, and that's what they're looking at. Are you in compliance with code? And the testimony is that no, there isn't compliance with code.
I have to take issue with the safety thing too, that I've
Well, all the
taken-
codes are based on health, safety, welfare, so
I
it's.
took
all-
measures before the storms to hold things together. I put temporary structure in. It took even more time to do it. There was no, even now, it's one of the strongest houses there. I don't get the safety thing. Well,
It is a safety thing. You've got a balcony that's not there. Somebody opens that door without even thinking and walk out to go to the balcony. There's no balcony. They're going to be on the ground.
there's just me and Ann. There's nobody else there. We're doing the work.
Suppose you have a house full of company or something like that. I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but this is the thing. It is a safety issue, and it's not a neglect. You're not neglected. You're not neglecting your property. You're enhancing your property. But that is not our role up here today. Our role here today is to decide whether or not you're in compliance with your balconies and your stairwells and porches or whatever the needs are. And you're not, correct? You don't have a balcony up there. You don't have a stairwell up there, staircase up there.
July is when I'll be in compliance.
What are you going to do?
Okay. Does anybody up here want to just say not in compliance and move forward? Or do we all feel like we need to edit something in
We don't
some
need to
way,
edit
shape, or
nothing,
form?
no. You think we need to edit anything?
Because we could take our non-compliance from 2016 and we could remove that. We could start that on the January 6th, 2019, and he's accruing $100 a day until he finishes this project. And that would probably be the most motivation for compliance there is. Take away the retro fees from 2016, start the fees from the January 6th compliance date, and know that he's accruing $100 a day until that project is finished.
$100 a day from.
It's 50 per violation.
From
so
what date?
That's what she's
the
asking.
January the
January
6th,
of this year.
instead of October 2016. January the 6th, 2019.
Okay, so are you giving him any additional time at this point?
I'm not sure if anybody wants that, but at the very least, I feel like we could take away the retro fine, the tens of thousands of dollars of retro fines to 2016, and at least start that January 6th, the deadline that he was aware of completely, and use that as a motivation to finish this project and come into
Give them till
compliance.
July 5th.
Can't she just word her motion that way?
You can word your motion that way. And here's my 2 cents. If you want to do that on this case because of the past history that you have given this gentleman and perhaps his misunderstanding that you would continue the case, but I would not recommend doing this
Anybody else?
from this point forward. If you want to modify your previous order, you would, it's like you're basically doing a first violation again. You're saying, I'm going to give him X amount of time to come into compliance, and failure to come into compliance by whatever date you establish, then a fine in the amount of $50 per day per violation will.
And can that date have already passed, the January 6th date?
I don't think she's saying give him additional time.
No.
She's saying take it into
You
fine
just don't-
status,
you-
but she doesn't want the retroactive fines all the way back
Okay.
to 2016.
Yeah, that would actually
Just to
probably
start now,
be easier if you want to be more
January 9th.
lenient on this. Then you can make your motion to find him in non-compliance, waive the fine from December, from
2016.
December 12, 2016, and begin the fine,
January 6th.
January
Our
6th.
date of compliance. And Pat, that doesn't actually provide more time. That
No,
doesn't
that's
go,
what I'm
that
saying.
starts
No.
January 6th.
Right.
So he's non-compliant and being fined as of January 6th.
Yes. How do we all feel about that?
Put the motion in.
Mr. Gaudio, your building permit, I believe, expires in June of this year.
July.
I thought it was June. Correct me if I'm
No,
wrong,
it
Ms. Tozer.
expires in May. It expires
Oh,
in
May,
May.
6 months from November, his last inspection.
So if you're not, if I read this correctly, if you're not completed by May, then you would have to apply for an additional building permit, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there's more inspections.
If he doesn't have an inspection completed by that May date, it doesn't renew for 6 more months.
No, ma'am, no. If he continues on working, or let's say he doesn't call for an inspection until May 26th of this year. If we go out there and do the inspection on May 26th, he'll get another 6 months. And that's how it works. And he's got quite a few inspections left to call in. So before it's all said and done, his expiration date will probably be 2020 sometime.
But if he doesn't call
On the
for any
permit.
inspections, 6 months from the last date of inspection, it's done.
Yes, ma'am, November 26th.
So the expiration date on the permit is kind of floating.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, sir, yep.
It
As
moves.
he gets, yes, as he gets
Yes.
inspections done, yes.
But like I said earlier, it typically doesn't take that long. You know, I mean, they're building houses in 3-4 months, you know. We usually don't have to go crazy with it, where we have one permit going on for 3-4 years.
And this floating expiration date is due to progress, am I correct?
Exactly, yes, sir.
So if there's no
And-
progress, then it won't float.
And like I said too, you know, if it did carry on that long,
Right.
there would be code cycle changes. We would have to have discussions, you know, with the owner, with the contractor. Hey, these codes have changed. We need to do a new review. You need to submit new code compliant plans.
I'm with you. Thanks, sir.
Go ahead, Ashley, you can do it.
So I would just be editing a previous motion.
Yes.
You can edit number 2.
And it's the amended.
Okay, okay.
Well,
Kinda, no?
no, it'll be in, the nature of the amendment will be in your motion, so I don't think we need to call it an amended motion.
Okay.
It's just going to be another,
Motion.
it'll be another motion.
Okay.
A new motion.
I move that the board previously found the respondent in violation of codes and ordered the respondent to come into compliance by January 6, 2019, or a fine in the amount of $50 per day per violation may be imposed. Respondent was provided proper notice of the prior order and proper notice of this compliance hearing. Respondent did attend this hearing. The testimony and evidence show that the respondent failed to bring all violations into compliance by the compliance date. The daily fine shall be imposed beginning the day after the compliance date and shall continue to accrue until the property is brought into compliance, as confirmed by the code enforcement officer.
You are modifying that. You are saying that
No, actually, yeah, but this is true now. The day after, so January 7th would start the daily fines, 2019.
so actually you're moving the compliance date to January 6th.
Yes. The compliance date was July 6th, or January 6th, yes.
And this says the day after, so I would assume fines would start January 7th. The city's total costs of prosecution are imposed in the amount of, does anybody have the cost restitution on this one?
I don't remember. Oh, I don't worry about it. I think it was already taken care of.
The board's prior order is incorporated herein. The city may record this order, which shall constitute a lien on the subject property and any other property owned by a respondent.
Does staff have an updated cost, or is it going to be the same cost that was before?
We will go with the previously submitted cost recovery statement, which was in the amount of $409.51.
Do I need to say that out loud?
Yes.
City's total cost of prosecution are imposed in the amount of $409.51. Being that the question to us was, are you still in compliance? We had a hard time answering something differently. But we've wiped 2 years off of tens of thousands of dollars off of the compliance issue, and I would just finish as soon as possible, come into compliance as soon as possible.
All right,
May I ask a question before
wait.
a second? Hasn't been second yet.
no, but we always ask for a discussion afterwards. So I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Ashley, second by Ed. Any questions? Now,
So, what does all this mean? It means that, does it mean that you have until July before you have to get anything, or you have to come back here next month? That wasn't established, was it?
He doesn't have to do any of that, right? We found noncompliance. We started the date for fines January 7th.
Right.
And now, when he is in compliance, he will let them know. He will have a fine daily from January 7th until the date that that's finished.
So
But it's not gonna go back to 2016 on him,
So technically, he doesn't have to come back here until he's finished, whenever that is.
ever.
well, he has to contact.
He doesn't need to
Mr.
come back at all.
he has to
The owner will
contact
need
Mr.
to
Tolson.
contact the code enforcement officer to determine when the property is in compliance and obtain a notice of compliance to stop the daily fine from running. And he can do that when one of two of violations are cured or at the time when both are cured.
I think he should know this.
I will put
He
that
gets
in
a
the
letter-
order,
gets a letter
make sure
about
that's
that.
in the order that he contacts code enforcement.
All right. Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Monis?
Yes.
Member Ozon? Member Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes, motion carried. Next motion, or is there a second motion now?
Nope.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, you'll be getting a letter from our attorney stating all that was said here today. You will have, you're now in the work schedule of getting it done. As of the 7th of January, you'll be fined $50 per violation until violation is done. Stay in contact with Mr. Tolson, so he knows what's going on.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Next case, please.
The next case on your agenda is number 18-144 for the property located at 124 Bermuda Street. Code Enforcement Officer Ashley Tuggle has a PowerPoint presentation prepared regarding this case and the continued, no PowerPoint, sorry about that. Officer Tuggle is here to provide testimony regarding the continued noncompliance at the property located at 124 Bermuda Street. Officer Tuggle, could you please inform the board what your most recent inspection was of this property?
It was this morning,
And what was the violation that you found on site?
1326 overgrowth.
And does the board have any questions for the code enforcement officer at this time?
Or what did she find?
What did you see this morning?
It's still in violation. It hasn't changed since I presented.
And
No
we
kind
don't
of
have
ever.
any photographic evidence of today?
I left it in the truck downstairs, so I can go grab it if you need to see a picture of it.
No contact with anybody in the
No.
property? Are they even in town?
There's somebody living there.
But not David Ford, or you just don't have any idea?
I don't know.
Can you maybe put into the record your description of what you observed in terms of the overgrowth?
Sure. The front yard is still being maintained, but the backyard, the grass is in excess of 12 inches throughout the entire backyard.
Oh, but there's no
No, it's not,
PowerPoint.
it's not a swear.
Oh, okay. Say, come on. That's not like that.
All right.
Ms. Tuggle, is there a fence that is preventing the backyard from access?
There is a fence. I don't know if it's locked. but we don't mow occupied properties. That's why we haven't sent our contractor out there to do it.
Has this property been occupied for the duration of the case?
Yes.
In cases like this, I would hope that we have photographic evidence of that day from now on. Agree?
I apologize that there is no evidence available to present to you. However, the testimony of the officer is that the property is in continued violation.
We need photographic evidence.
Do you want it right now? You want her to go to the truck to get
No,
it?
I'm
Okay.
saying from this point on.
Normally, 99.75% of the time, that evidence is here.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Pull it up on the laptop, they can pass the laptop down.
Interject, does the city have any new costs? A new cost?
Go ahead.
Ready? I move to find that the board previously found the respondent in violation of codes and order the respondent to come into compliance by, January 6th, 2019?
Where are y'all getting January 6th from?
Well, that's where they said. Okay, November 30th, 2018. Or a fine in the amount of $50 per day may be imposed. Second reading, yeah, findings, non-compliance.
Yeah, this is non-compliance with prior order.
Respondent was provided proper notice of the prior order and proper notice of this compliance hearing. Respondent did not attend this hearing. The testimony and evidence show that the respondent failed to bring all violations into compliance by the compliance date. The daily fine shall be imposed beginning the day after the compliance date and shall continue to accrue until the property is brought into compliance as confirmed by the code enforcement officer. The city's total costs of prosecution are imposed in the amount of $168.49. The board's prior order is incorporated herein. The city may record this order, which shall constitute a lien on the subject property and any other property owned by respondent.
Second.
Motion by Ashley, second by Joe. Any questions? Any concerns? Roll call vote, please.
Member Ozon? Yes. Member Richardson?
Yes.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Moniz?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes. Motion carried.
Real quick, for our new sheets, our last sentence, or a fine in the amount of blank per day may be imposed. Should we maybe also say per violation per day? Or you just add it up?
It depends on what you did before.
Per
Okay.
violation
So
per
if
day.
you're always doing per violation per day, then if you always are going to do that, then I'll change this to say per violation per day.
Okay.
Because if there's only one violation, then that's just superfluous. It won't really matter. But if you always do per violation per day for your fines, then I can change this. And then you'll just put in whatever the previous order, the amount, whatever the previous order had imposed.
Okay, next case, please.
The next case listed under old business is relating to the case number 18-146 for the property located at 20 North Washington Avenue regarding the violation of International Property Code subsection 301.3 vacant structure and land. Officer Lewis is here to provide testimony regarding the continued violation ongoing at this property. I'd like to invite him up here. Officer Lewis, have you inspected the property at 20 North Washington Ave to determine whether or not the owner has brought the property into compliance?
Yes, I have.
And is the property still in violation?
Property is still in violation, no change.
What violation still exists on this property?
301.3 vacant structure and land.
Same as the last case, there's no photographic evidence.
No.
Is this the property that has the big billboard on it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But
The old bait shop.
this is treated separately.
Correct. That case has already been put aside, as you found them in noncompliance on that at the last meeting in November. And
This
then
is
you
just the
were-
building,
Yes, sir.
the Royal Castle Restaurant.
Does the board have any further questions of staff?
Go ahead.
What is the violation?
The vacant structure has been left in disrepair, and I'll let Officer Lewis comment on it.
301.3 states that a vacant structure should be clean and secured. Right now, the structure is still secure somewhat. The doors are. There's panels.
Is this the one that we discussed as blight last time?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And this is a different case?
No, it's the same case.
The same case.
This is the compliance hearing,
Hearing for
to
that
find out
case.
if he came into compliance.
Thank you.
Second one.
I just didn't see the word blight, and I was just thrown off a little bit. Thanks.
Mr. Hawk was here at that meeting and provided testimony that he was going to demolish the building.
301.3 reads, vacant structures and premises thereof or vacant land shall be maintained in a clean, safe, secure, and sanitary condition as provided herein, so as not to cause a blighting problem or adversely affect the public health or safety.
Has Mr. Houck applied for a demolition permit?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, he has. There was a building permit, a demolition permit issued for that property on December the 11th of 2018.
So that's been since our last meeting?
Yes, sir.
So he has taken some action?
Yes, sir. He's not done anything on the property, but the permit has been issued.
Frank,
Answer my questions.
there has been an inspection since that date.
Yes, they passed a pre-demo inspection on the 21st of December.
Could you say your name for the record?
Paul Ballington.
What's a pre-demo inspection?
Um,
Forgive me,
it's one of the demolition inspections we have, and our inspector just went out there to check and see what they were gonna demo and kind of get an idea of the scope of the work, of what the extent of it before they do anything.
Well, then
They
blow
have
it
to
up on
make
the road.
sure, they have to make sure, like, there are no live gas lines or
Electrical
water,
lines.
Yeah,
water, you know, where
exactly.
you might bust the.
There's actually separate inspections
kind
for
of
that, the gas shut off, electric shut off, like make sure all that stuff's disconnected properly.
Once they have that pre-demo done, how long do they does that permit run a certain length of time?
It's just like the one we were talking about before. Now it won't expire till June 21st of this year.
And that's the last communication anyone's had is December 21st?
Yeah, but that's only
Yeah, no.
2 weeks ago.
Not very long,
But, I mean, got the holidays and everything, but I'm just wanting to know how long he has to use that permit to have it demoed.
Yep, June 21st. Demo permits usually, if they're calling in for those last inspections, it's demoed. So this one should not take very long.
So he has made progress.
Yes, sir.
And today was his date of compliance?
Yes.
Yes. But again, are there only certain companies that do demos like that?
There's a few companies that only do demo work. Most of the time, they'll do demo, but usually they're there to do other stuff too. You know, usually they'll come in and do the demo and they're doing the remodel. In this case, it's just a demo. So yeah, there are companies that do just demo work.
Okay,
So like I'm on board with a bunch of stuff, but he's not here to say why.
yeah.
So what you're saying is that building is gonna be raised, it's gonna,
It's gonna be demoed completely. When there's a demo permit, it has to be returned to original topography. So we should see some sod and, you know, plants out there. It should look nice.
just an empty field.
Empty field, yeah.
So he's attempting, everything we've seen so far is he's attempting compliance.
Yes, sir.
To speak to Member Eden's comment for the previous meetings where Mr. Houck appeared, he always had called the week prior to let me know of his intent to appear before this board, and I have not heard from him since the November meeting.
And November was the first time we heard this.
This case, yes.
But he's applied for a demolition permit since
Through
the
the
last
building
meeting.
department. I'm
Since the
just
last meeting, yes.
letting you all know
So
that I did not hear
if
that
I
he
was
planned
Mr.
to come
Hawk,
today.
I would assume that the staff communicates.
As a board, you should also communicate with us what he's doing. And, I mean, I'll say what my suggestion possibly is maybe since he made progress, continue it for a month and see if he continues to make progress, maybe.
I'd be on
I'd be
board with that.
satisfied with that.
Make a motion.
I'd like to hear your input.
I mean, I say this all the time. When you have your compliance, when you set a date and you say that they need to be in compliance by a certain date, that is the motivation for them to bring it into compliance, when they know that there is a date that they have to bring the property into compliance. When you're willing to continually give them more time and give them more time, even though you've entered an order saying, this is when we want you to comply, and this is the fine we're going to impose, then you're not giving any teeth to your orders.
Now, I do certainly agree with that, but let me ask this. November 12th was the meeting. When would he have gotten correspondence that we set the end date of January 16th?
Well, he was
He was
here.
present. at-
Oh, okay, so he knew that day.
Yeah, the decision was signed and dated November 20th, mailed to him, and he would have received that written correspondence formalizing the order that you made at the meeting that he was present for.
And after that meeting, he had got a demolition permit.
I agree with what she says on a long-term basis, but I think it's been 2 months, and I think he's made progress, and we've let a lot of people go with a lot less than that.
I agree.
I still agree with your 1 month continuance.
I do too.
Need a motion? I'll make a motion that we continue this case for 1 month.
Second.
Now, just so everyone knows, that doesn't change the compliance date,
No, it
just
doesn't.
because you continue the hearing.
Right, because this isn't first read.
Because you've already established a compliance date.
And accordingly, the fines will commence tomorrow.
Yes.
How would it be, should it be worded to continue it and the compliance date be, well, let's talk about this first. Say that again?
I think we'd move the compliance date if that's what we're trying to accomplish.
You would have to move the compliance date if you want to not have the fine start tomorrow.
Julie, you want to change your motion?
I think that our board attorney is right. We're going into changing a compliance date, doing this, doing that. It'd be easier just to find them in violation and let the city sort it out at the end when it comes up to that.
Well, and I love that point of view and way of thinking when there's no one to contact and no one to talk to and nobody's doing anything and nobody's making progress and we just keep moving along, but I feel like this is different in that aspect, at least slightly.
Because he's working.
Yeah.
Because he has what?
Because he applied for the permit on December 11th, and he took them out there on December 21st for the issuance of the demo permit, and then we had Christmas and New Year's, and I didn't accomplish anything for 3 weeks during that time. I don't know about anybody else, but.
Well, I hate to bring up a past case, but Mr. Gaudio, past case, has been working his butt off, and we
Working his butt off doing a PowerPoint presentation.
I understand all that.
This has been only going on for better than 2 months.
Yeah, I know that.
Not 2 years.
I know that too.
Don't forget, our job is to find whether they're in compliance or not.
We've decided that we think he's working on compliance. We've already said it, so let's just get it done.
When did this start? The first time? We're not talking about 2 months. We don't see it for about 3 months before we see it. So this has been going on for 6 months?
It's originally heard at our meeting of November the 12th.
We gave them 6 months?
The notice of violation was mailed in January 2018.
Yeah.
But it did not come up before the board until November 12th.
It was not noticed for its first scheduled hearing until November 12th, 2018. That's correct.
And wasn't he in last year for that
board that
Yeah, he was here.
Yeah, he was here.
we scheduled two
On a
different
separate
cases for the
issue,
same
He
hearing.
was here.
He was here on the billboard issue.
Yeah.
Correct.
The big picture.
Yeah, the billboard that he rebuilt after the hurricane.
They had to tear
And we
down.
gave us 6 months,
But that was for the billboard, not the building.
not the building. The building came up. That's right, you're correct.
How did you guys select January the 15th? Did you just take it 2 months out? Did he request that amount of time?
I don't recall.
I don't recall because I voted against the motion.
The city staff was aware that the December meeting was going to be canceled in December and requested a January compliance date due to the schedule of not having a December board meeting.
Got it.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you for rescuing us.
I remember that now, yes.
I don't know what you want to do. If somebody wants to make a motion and they need help with the motion, I can help them, but I need to know what you want to do.
Go ahead, Jenny.
You made the motion.
Made the motion already, didn't
Gina
Gina
made
made
the
the
motion.
motion, yes.
I
And
seconded.
Joe seconded.
But you just moved to continue it 1
It
month.
doesn't solve
It
anything.
didn't solve anything. She just moved to continue. So technically, he's supposed to start violation
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Well,
Try to start tomorrow. But it doesn't change anything.
Well, let's, can we amend what Gina just said to start the violation as of 1 month from today?
You can if that's what you want to do.
I think everybody does. That's what we're gonna vote on.
Okay, let me try, okay, I'll try to reword this. I move that we continue this case for 30 days and change the order to correct to, what's the date of the next meeting is?
Is it the
It's
11th?
February the 11th, so
Yeah.
change it to either the Friday
Friday,
before.
okay, so change the order to correct date to Friday, February 8th. And, or February 8th, 2019, or a fine shall be imposed of $50 per day per violation commencing on February 9th.
second.
Second.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Motion by Gina, second by Joe. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Monis?
No.
Member Ozon?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, so he will be continued with no violation until February the 9th. Okay.
There's no fines.
Well, that's not, no fine, that's what I said. No violation. All right. New cases? There it goes.
First case listed under new cases is 19-02 for the property located at 2767 Pine Ridge Drive. And Code Enforcement Officer Ashley Tuckle is here to provide testimony regarding the nature of this case and the violation at the property. I believe that there is a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
This is board number 1902. The respondent is Elizabeth Olson and Daisy M. Dingus. The violation address is 2767 Pine Ridge Drive. The notice of violation and the notice of hearing and complaint were mailed to the address at 2767 Pine Ridge Drive. The violation is 20-58, which is our parking regulations.
The affidavits of the notice of violation and notice of complaint are being submitted into evidence as exhibit number 1.
The nature of the violation is there are miscellaneous vehicles and a trailer parked in the front yard of the residence where they are not allowed to be per code. The initial inspection was on November 6th, and a notice of violation was mailed to them on the 7th. It was returned on 11/16, and it was signed for by E. Olson. The notice of hearing was mailed on the 19th, or it was posted at City Hall on the 19th, and it was signed for on December 6th after it was mailed. They were given until the 16th of November to comply. I've had no contact with the owner or anyone at the residence. I conducted multiple follow-up inspections on November 19th, December 4th, December 19th, and January 10th, and then this morning. And the property is still in violation. The miscellaneous parking regulation that it's in violation of is there is a trailer parked in the front yard, which per city code it can be if it is behind the front building line and its forward projection is not less than 25 feet from the front line. And then it's also in violation of A, there shall be no off-street parking in the front yards, rear yards, and side yards. So this was on the initial inspection. You can see that there is a truck parked in the front yard. There is also a truck parked on the side of the house. This was on the November 20th. The truck's still parked in the front yard, and there is a trailer behind the truck. Here we have a boat that is parked in front of the front line of the house and the trailer, and that was on December 20th, or excuse me, December 19th. There's the trailer. And this one was taken on the 10th. And there was a truck, I don't believe it was the same truck, I believe it was a white truck there this morning parked in the yard, and then the trailer is still parked there in the front yard. My recommendation, based on the testimony and evidence presented in 1902, it is determined that the respondent, Elizabeth C. Olson and Daisy M. Dingus, is the current owners of record of the property located at 2767 Pine Ridge Drive, located in Titusville, Florida, as determined by the property appraiser records, in possession or control of the property and in violation of Titusville City Ordinance Section 20-58 as defined. It's further recommended the Code Enforcement Board order the respondent to correct the violation on or before February 4th, 2019 to comply. In order to correct the violation, the respondent must move all vehicles off grass and park the trailers in appropriate location on the property. Order the respondents to be assessed administrative costs in the amount of $115.66. If the respondent does not comply by February 4th, 2019, a fine of $50 per violation per day should be imposed for each day the violation continues.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said that the green card came back with Mrs. Olson's signature?
Correct.
But she did not accept the letter?
No, it was, the green card came back signed for, so
Oh,
that
okay.
means it was accepted.
Okay.
And the notice of hearing was actually hand-delivered.
Okay. So somebody is there?
Yes.
It says on the agenda, section 13-73, inoperative vehicle, yet we saw 3 different kinds of vehicles parked in
Correct,
the
they're
yard.
in compliance on that,
Okay.
so that code,
Okay.
that section's not being brought
Okay.
before the board.
I have the cost recovery statement that I would like to submit as evidence exhibit number 2.
How much was it, Chelsea?
It was $115.66.
None of those pictures had a great shot of the driveway. What's going on in the driveway?
It varies on the inspection. Sometimes the driveway's completely empty. Today, it was pretty full when I drove by.
Because like the driveway is on the right of the picture, right? The left side
Correct.
is just the yard.
Correct.
Where they're moving all those things in
The
and
carport
on.
had cars under it, so.
And this is an ongoing issue with this resident. I know it's never been before Code Board before, but we've been out there multiple times for a violation of this nature.
And what's the average vehicle count for that residence?
At least 2 at a time.
And the most you've ever seen?
I believe this morning there were 3 in the driveway, plus the truck in the yard and the trailer, so 5.
Would it be too much trouble to ask you to put the pictures back up again? Okay.
There is a owner and representative of the property that is here present that wishes to speak to the board when you're finished with your questions of staff.
Thank you.
The truck that's in the back, behind that thing, is okay where
No.
it is?
No, that is in violation as well. I believe they have moved it. However, there is now a panel of fence there, so I can no longer see behind there. Which the boat is allowed to be parked there as long as it's behind the front line.
If you can't see it, it's okay to park it there, right?
It depends. The section that talks about the 25 feet in the front building line is in relation to trailers. The boat is on a trailer, so that section applies to that particular vehicle, where non-trailered vehicles would be looked at differently.
City code says you cannot park a car or a vehicle, so truck, car, anything like that, in the grass, anywhere on your property. So it doesn't matter if it's in the backyard, side yard, front yard, it says you can't do it.
Really? That's just overnight, right?
No, period. There is no time frame on our city code.
If there's no other questions of staff, I'd like to turn it over to the property owner and representative.
Okay.
You state your name. Can you state your name?
Let me go ahead and swear you in, please. Are you both going to testify?
Yes.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Can you each state your name and your address?
Elizabeth Olson, 2767 Pine Ridge Drive, Titusville, Florida, 32780.
And my name is Bronco Adam Philippasic, 2767 Pine Ridge Drive, Titusville, Florida,
Can you
32780. I lived there, but I was out of town. We went to that hurricane to Wilmington.
I gotta get your name. I'm just trying to write it down.
Oh, Bronco, Bramko, Adam, and then Philippasic, Filipasic.
Thank you.
But as of right this moment, the yard, I got my truck out here in the parking lot, the one that they showed the picture with the side-by-side. When I come back in town, that was my side-by-side, but it's back at the boss's house. I picked it up from storage when I went out of town for the hurricane, doing all the work up in North Carolina, and we come back and I had nowhere to keep it, so I brought it there and then I took it back to the boss's house. My truck is parked in the driveway now. We're not having vehicles there. I already made a complaint. We've been getting these all this stuff. I tell her she's visually impaired. She can't see it. I'm the one, when I come home from work, I see it. And yes, I get aggravated. I say some words I shouldn't say, but it's a 27-year-old kid that, excuse my French, don't care. And she has to do it, and she just had the word with them that there is no more mechanical stuff. That's why we park there, because if you pull in the driveway, you're getting nails in your tires and bolts. We've been cleaned up. I got the truck loaded now, and I got another load to go pick up to take out of there. And I'm the one that always has to take it out, and I feel as a 44-year-old man, I shouldn't have to be picking up after a 27-year-old kid.
This sounds perfect. The city has asked for February 4th as a date of compliance, so I think all we're gonna ask is that you come into compliance by the 4th of February.
Exactly what do you mean by compliance? I need to know exactly what has to be done.
It all cleaned up, and no vehicles on the parking, in the yard.
Well, there's no vehicles in the yard right now.
Well, there's a Nissan. There's a
But the
trailer.
Nissan behind the fence,
No, it's not. It's in the front yard.
it's in the front yard?
Yes, they have the big boat parked back there.
Is he related to her?
It's her son, adopted son. It's my nephew. Yes, he lives there too.
Maybe the code officer can clarify exactly what they need to do.
I mean, I ain't seen none of them come to the house because I've always working. I'm working over in Orlando or out of state. But I do, when I come home at night for a short little brief and go back out, I do see the letters on the thing and I do open them and read them to her because she can't read. And so,
You were exactly right. Just get the vehicles off
Yeah.
the grass.
yeah.
That's it.
And
If
there's
they
only
put 'em back
one right
behind
now in the little lawn trailer because the big boat's out and we already got that big white truck, it's gone.
Okay. The lawn trailer, if you can move it to the side of the driveway,
Yeah.
you know where you have that little extension?
Yeah.
That would be fine.
Okay, that can be done.
He sold that to the guy next door.
Yeah. The guy next door to us is wanting to buy it.
Okay, well, if he sells it and gets it off the
If
property,
he even park it
then.
in his driveway.
Absolutely.
Get it off ours.
You can park it on the street in front.
It just
in the
looks like
driveway.
Sanford and Son when you come around the
What do you
corner.
mean?
I want to download that thing and put on a PA every time I come around the corner, the Sanford and Son theme song, because that's what it looks like. And I understand we have neighbors that call on her because she can't see it. When I come home, she wants to know why I'm fuming. It looks like crap. It's a residential area. If you want to look like that, live like that, go out to Mims where you get 5 acres, 10 acres out in the woods. You can have all that belongings out there, but you can't do it in a residential area.
Does
I'm
he
ready to make a
understand that?
motion.
Huh?
Does your nephew understand that?
Well, we try to, and it goes,
Okay.
And
In
also,
here, out here, it hits the wall.
and also, he can't have anything in the backyard, right?
The boat can be in the backyard, but no vehicles.
no vehicle ain't being in there. I did put that section of fence up to keep that, and it's a lock. I'm the only one with a key to it. And I'm getting ready to put a privacy here on this side as well with a gate, the way there is no cars driving through there. That's the only, actually, the prettiest yard is on this side in the backyard, that little L shape there. And I want grass to grow back there, but it's hard to maintain a yard if you're working 7 days a week,
Right.
so.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that this board issue the following findings of fact and conclusions of law in this case. The respondent is the owner of the property located at 2767 Pine Ridge Drive, Titusville, Florida. The respondent was given proper notice of the code violations found by the code enforcement officer and was given a reasonable time to comply before this case was brought before the board. That respondent was given proper notice of this hearing. That respondent or a representative did appear at today's hearing. That the evidence and testimony presented show that respondent did not bring the property into compliance by the date set forth in the notice, and the property is in violation of the following code provisions. Section 20-58 by reason of no off-street parking in yards. Respondent shall be given until February the 4th, 2019 to bring all violations in compliance. It shall be respondent's responsibility to immediately notify the code enforcement officer when compliance is achieved so that the officer can inspect and confirm compliance. If compliance is not achieved by this date, a subsequent compliance hearing will be held and a fine in the amount of $50 per day may be imposed for each and every day any of the violations continued past the compliance date. In setting the proposed fine, the board considers the gravity of the violations, any actions taken by the respondent to correct the violations, and any previous code violations by this respondent. The city's costs of prosecution are imposed in the amount of $115.66. And I think that we're good there.
We have a fine to pay today?
No, you will not be fined unless you do not come into compliance by the 4th of February. So you have the next couple of weeks, get it all in order, call code and have them come re-inspect, and then you won't have to worry about it.
Okay, what day does the 4th fall on?
It's a Friday.
Yes.
It's a Friday.
And Ashley, the code officer, she knows, and she'll know that you call her, she'll come out and look at it and talk to you. so that you know that it's all done.
All right.
RL and I are discussing reserving costs. How do you all feel about that? Okay,
I agree.
so I would like change that and reserve the costs for the city.
So you're not gonna be charged the recovery fee by the city,
Unless it doesn't
come in compliance.
Right.
Sec,
So I'm not going to be what now again?
The $115.66 will not be a fine unless you do not come into compliance on February the 4th.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll get fined that.
And it needs to stay that way.
Yeah.
the second, second.
Oh, sorry, didn't get very far. Motion by Ashley, a second by Gina. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Member Ozon?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Monis?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes. Chanel screen? Okay, motion carried. Next, you're done. You'll get a letter from us stating everything, but right now you're okay as long as it stays in compliance.
Yeah, as long as it stays clean.
Get it into compliance and get that confirmed by February the 4th.
Tell him he's gonna start paying the fines.
Yeah. Start making him pay the fines.
I can't get blood out of a turnip. He is a turnip.
I understand. All right, you be careful, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, case number 19-05 is relating to the property located at 2314 South Hopkins Avenue. Officer Lewis is here to provide testimony regarding the nature of this case, and I believe there's also a PowerPoint presentation to go along with this case presentation. Officer Lewis, would you like to inform the board of the violation with case number 19-05? All right, Officer Lewis, did you have an opportunity to inspect the premises at 2314 South Hopkins Ave?
Yes, I did. I've lost my spot already. Okay. I'm sorry, start over.
Did you find the property located at 2314 South Hopkins Avenue in violation of the Titusville Code of Ordinances?
Yes, I did.
And what was the nature of the violation?
656, no permit.
And what do they need a permit for?
They need a permit for an accessory structure, it's a shed in the rear of the property.
All right, so you got some dates on this case summary regarding when you first went out to this property to determine it was in violation. When was that?
Initial inspection was done on the 24th of October 2018. Notice of violation delivered to staff in office. We also sent certified mail on October 25th to the address and signed for, returned on 11/6 from the owner. Notice of hearing was posted on 12/5 at City Hall and also hand-delivered to the business and was mailed on 11/29/18 and returned signed for on 12/14 by the owner.
I have the affidavit proving the mailing and affidavit as to notice that I would like to submit as exhibit number 1.
Okay, the date given to comply with the original notice of violation was November the 12th, 2018. I have spoken with the staff at the business about the situation. I performed follow-up inspections on 11/14/18 and on 11/27/18.
Can you tell us what your conversations were when you spoke with them regarding the violation?
I just dropped the notices off and told them of what the violations were.
Was there a verbal acceptance of understanding that they needed to get a permit?
Yes, there was. I have not spoken with the owners. It was simply staff at the office.
Okay.
The results of the inspections, and there's no change on the building and the need for a permit. There was actually 2 violations at the time, one for outdoor storage, which was found to be in compliance on 11/27/18. As of this morning, there's still no application for a permit or no record on file for a permit at that address for accessory structure.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
You said it was found to be in compliance, but still with no permit. How can it be in compliance with no
It was
permit?
in compliance for outdoor storage.
The second code violation that was originally cited is no longer a continuing violation for outdoor storage.
It still doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry.
Two separate
I understand that
violations.
part, but you've got the storage, you've got a storage shed, and it's built in compliance, but it's not in compliance, it's gonna have a permit. That's what I don't understand. How can
No.
it have 2 separate issues?
No, ma'am. You have 2 separate issues. You have a accessory structure in excess of 120 square feet with which a permit is required to have.
Okay.
You had an additional charge of outdoor storage, which was building materials and other related things to roofing.
Oh, okay. All right, that
They
makes
have
sense.
since got rid of all of that, which was
Okay.
put in compliance, which was not on, why it's not listed on this
Okay.
case.
All right, well, I didn't
What they
hear
do
that
have
part.
is a 120 square foot accessory structure that's on site without a permit.
Okay, all right, got that part then, all right.
Okay. Now, the violation that's left is 656, construction permit required, which simply states it should be unlawful for anybody, for any person to construct, alter, repair, remove, or demolish or commence construction, alteration, repair, removal, or demolition of a building, swimming pool, or structure in the city without first obtaining a formal permit from the building official. Also states that you be unlawful for any person to occupy or use any addition, alteration, building, or structure for which a building permit was issued until it's been inspected and approved by the building official. Okay, this is the day of the initial inspection. If you'll notice, the shed in question is the larger of the 2 sheds back there. If you'll notice here, some to the right of the truck, that is shingles stored back there. This is a roofing business. And there's also material stuck to the left-hand side there. That's buckets of roofing tar, roofing adhesive, and shingles. This photo here is showing that the structure is still in violation. Still no permit for it.
Officer Lewis, could the owner of the property obtain compliance by removal of the shed?
He could.
Or the alternative, obtaining a building permit from the city of Titusville?
Yes, either one would bring their building into compliance.
Thank you.
I take the small shed is not 120 square feet?
No.
Okay. So there's no, in other words, so no permits required for that?
It is exempt.
He's exempt.
I know what to do. Thank you.
Because it was taken off the agenda.
Okay. So far, based on our recommendation, based on the testimony that was presented in case 1905, Titusville Code Enforcement Board has determined that Salazar Roofing Corporation is the owner of record of property located at 2314 Hopkins Avenue, located in Titusville, Florida, determined by the property appraiser's records. They're also in possession of the property and in violation of Titusville Code of Ordinances, Section 6-56 as defined. Okay, it is further recommended that the Code Enforcement Board order the respondents to correct the violation on or before February the 4th, 2019. And in order to correct the violation, the respondents must obtain a building permit for accessory structure or remove it from the location. Order the respondents to be assessed administrative cost in the amount of $115.66.
I have a cost recovery statement to provide to the board in the amount of $115.66.
Have a question. There are 2 sheds there.
Yes, sir.
The bigger shed is the one that is in violation.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
The smaller shed complies.
Yes, sir. It is
Okay.
less than 120 square feet. By code, that is, it's considered exempt.
Exempt.
Okay, Also, if the respondents do not comply with the order by February 4th, 2019, a fine of $50 per day will be imposed for the violation until the property comes into compliance. Is recommendation. Next slide. That's it.
Does the board have any questions of staff?
What did they say to you whenever you gave them the violation that they needed a permit?
I simply gave it to staff at the office, and she said, okay, I have not spoken with either one of the Salazars.
So you spoke with a commercial business employee and not the owner of the property, is that
Correct.
Thank you, Officer Lewis.
Okay, what do y'all want to do? Go, Ashley.
I move that the board issue the following facts and conclusions of law in this case, that the respondent is the owner of the property located at 2314 South Hopkins Avenue, Titusville, Florida. The respondent was given proper notice of code violations found by the code enforcement officer and was given a reasonable period of time to comply before the case was brought before the board. That respondent was given a proper notice of this hearing. That respondent or representative did not appear at today's hearing. That the evidence and the testimony presented show that the respondent did not bring the property into compliance by the date set forth in the notice, and the property is in violation of the following code provisions. 6-56, by reason of permit required. Respondent shall be given until February the 4th to bring all violations into compliance. It shall be respondent's responsibility to immediately notify the code enforcement officer when compliance is achieved, so the officer can inspect and confirm compliance. If compliance is not achieved by this date, a subsequent compliance hearing will be held and a fine in the amount of $50 per day may be imposed for each and every day any of the violations continued past the compliance date. In setting the proposed fine, the board considers the gravity of the violations, any actions taken by the respondent to correct the violations, and any previous code violations by this respondent. The city's costs of prosecution are imposed in the amount of $115.66.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Ashley, second by Ariel. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Moniz?
Yes.
Member Ozon?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes, motion carried. Next one, Kim. Sorry.
The next and last case listed on your agenda is number 19-06 for the property located at 1303 Vista Terrace. And Code Enforcement Officer Tuggle is here to present a PowerPoint presentation regarding the nature of this case.
This is Code Enforcement Board number 1907. The respondent is Francis Lounsbury Revocable Trust. The violation address is 1303 Vista Terrace. That's also where the notice of violation and notice of hearing were mailed. The violation is 13-26 overgrowth. The grass in the backyard is in excess of 12 inches. Do you want to do the affidavit?
I have the affidavit of the notice of violation and notice of hearing and complaint that I will submit to the board as exhibit number 1.
The initial inspection was on August 20th of 2018. The certified mail was returned unclaimed on September 23rd, 2018. The notice of hearing was posted at City Hall and on the property on December 19th of 2018. They were originally given the date to comply of September 9th, 2018. I spoke to the owner on October 11th, and she said that someone was mowing her grass. I informed her that, yes, they were mowing the front yard, but not the backyard, and that's where the problem was. So she said she was going to hire a new company, and it should be cut by that weekend. I have not had any contact from her since then. Multiple follow-up inspections, September 10th, October 18th, October 24th, November 30th, December 19th, January 10th, and then this morning. And the property is still overgrown in the backyard. The portion of 13-26 that it's in violation of is the allowing of grass in excess of 12 inches in height from the ground to exist on the property. This is the backyard. And this was on September 10th. It has really not changed much since that picture. This was in October. That's where I posted the notice of hearing on the property. This was on January 10th. This is the backyard. And it looks the same this morning. Based on the testimony and evidence presented in 1907, it is determined that the respondent, Francis Lounsbury Revocable Trust, is the owner of record of property located at 1303 Vista Terrace, located in Titusville, Florida, as determined by the property appraiser records, in possession or control of the property, and in violation of Titusville City of Ordinance, Section 13-26 as defined. It's further recommended the Code Enforcement Board order the respondent to correct the violation on or before February 4th, 2019. In order to correct the violation, the respondent must order the respondent to be assessed, there's apparently a sentence missing there. The respondent must remove the overgrowth from the property. Order the respondent to be assessed the administrative cost in the amount of $133.27. If the respondent does not comply by February 4th, 2019, a fine of $50 per day per violation should be imposed for each day the violation continues. While I was there conducting one of my inspections, a neighbor flagged me down and asked what could be done about the property because they were noticing a lot of rats in the area and snakes and things of that nature. So the neighbors are just as fed up.
You were speaking with Frances Lounsbury?
Yes, I spoke to her once.
And do you ever ask or about the certified mail and why or why not, or?
No, obviously she got something because she knew to call me. So she got some letter or the notice on the house.
Okay.
And she lives at that address, right?
According to property appraiser, I did not ask her when I spoke to her on the phone.
But the front yard is still being maintained?
Yes.
I have a cost recovery statement in the amount of $133.27 that I would like to submit as exhibit number 2.
Really start getting in the house.
And I'd like to correct my earlier statement. I introduced this case as number 19-06. In fact, it's 19-07.
I was gonna
My
ask that.
apologies.
Shame on you. Okay, what do y'all want to do?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go Suzanne.
Ashley.
John.
I move that the board issue the following finding of fact. In conclusions of law in this case, that the respondent is the owner of the property located at 1303 Vista Terrace, Titusville, Florida, 32780. That the respondent was given proper notice of code violation found by the code enforcement officer and was given a reasonable time to comply before the case was brought before the board. That respondent was given proper notice of the hearing and the respondent or representative did not appear at today's hearing. That the evidence and testimony presented showed that respondent did not bring the property into compliance by the date set forth in the notice, and the property is in violation of the following code enforcement. 13-26 overgrowth. Respondent shall be given until February 5th, 2019 to bring all violations into compliance. It shall be respondent's responsibility to immediately identify the code enforcement officer when compliance is achieved so the officer can inspect and confirm compliance. If compliance is not achieved by this date, a subsequent compliance hearing will be held and the fine of $50 per day may be imposed for each and every day, and the violations continue past the compliance date. In setting the proposed fine, the board considers the gravity of the violations and the actions taken by the respondent to correct the violations and any previous code violations by this respondent. The city's cost of prosecution are imposed in the amount of $133.27.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Suzanne, second by Ed. Any questions? Roll call vote, please.
Member Ozon?
Yes.
Member Richardson?
Yes.
Member Edens?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Beckles?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Monis?
Yes.
Chairman Bell?
Yes, motion carried. Okay. Board Attorney's report.
How do you like the motions? How do you like the motions?
I like them.
Okay. I will make the revision since if there's multiple violations and you want to impose per violation, then I will make that change so that it comes out.
Lemonade, you could just get us a tiny.
Or if you want to do a little marker, just take a little magic marker to save on cost.
There you go.
You could just put in per violation. Okay, that's all I have.
At our last meeting, Jacob Edwards was there, and he applied to be an alternate member, and the council appointed him the following night. Do you swear him in today, or?
I understand he's already been sworn in. That's what I was told.
No.
Oh, I thought that's what you said. I'm sorry.
I had a misunderstanding, I'm sorry.
Okay.
He can be sworn in at this time or at the beginning of the next meeting when he takes his seat, but that's up to the board attorney for that decision, and now would be an appropriate time if you feel doing so. Then at the time when there is a empty seat, 2 empty seats from regular members, then your first alternate would take that first seat chair, and then the second alternate would take that second chair.
Want me to go ahead and swear him in?
Sure.
All right.
It's okay by me.
Sir, if you would stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that you will uphold the Constitution of the State of Florida and the country of USA, and will you agree to uphold all the laws of the city of Titusville and perform all your duties as Code Enforcement Board member as appropriate?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, and welcome to the board.
Okay, next month, correct, we're gonna do February, we're gonna do an hour meeting beforehand?
Oh, right, we had talked about that.
Yeah.
And you wanted to have a meeting to talk about fines.
Right. If we do that beforehand, we do lunch again like we did before?
We're gonna have another meeting today?
No, next month,
Next month.
next month.
Ms. Bell, could you elaborate on what you would like training on?
About fines, and also we go over the new,
Motions.
the new motions that Ms. Deborah did for us.
Okay.
Today was a tryout. We want to make sure we're okay.
So before the February meeting,
Yes,
1 hour.
1 hour. And you two are invited to come
Fine
too.
with me. It's okay with the city.
Ms. Nutcher, do you think that you would require an hour to prepare information for this type of training? Is this something that
I
you've
don't
done
think
before?
I need to prepare anything. I'm just
Okay.
going to respond to questions. So
Okay.
I don't anticipate preparing anything.
Would you like to do it at the end of the next meeting instead of coming earlier?
It's according to how long the agenda is for the next meeting.
I'd have to ask Megan that one.
There were no new cases for February, so it will be whatever was left over from this meeting.
So
And
you're
we can do it at the
looking
end of the next meeting, then that way everybody doesn't have to hush.
Okay.
at compliance hearing from today then.
Let's do it at the end then. We'll
So-
plan on the end of February meeting.
February?
Come prepared with your questions for the end of the meeting in February, and at that time, we'll have an open forum for question and answer related to fines and anything else that may be appropriate.
So you don't want to buy us lunch, apparently.
That's the deal we're getting out of this. I mean, we're cheap as it is.
Well, I'll see what I can do about snacks for
There- oh,
your,
okay.
for your.
Pack of crackers and water.
So I'll see what I can do. Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the fines, though, I do want to make a comment that it does help with the officers recommending what fine to do. It's not so arbitrary.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that I don't mean the motions to be so long, but these are all the things that are required under Florida statute. So when you impose a fine, you have to consider the gravity of the violation, which you can determine by the nature of the violation. any actions taken by the respondent to correct the violations, which is typically part of the code officer's narrative, as they tell you if they've had contact. But one thing that I usually don't hear is whether there's other code violations that have been on this property before. So maybe code staff can bring that to the board's attention too when you're considering the fine that you're proposing and recommending to the board, that you've considered these factors as well, so that they're assured that you've already taken into consideration that this is a very serious violation or not so serious, whether they've been very cooperative or not cooperative, and whether they've got previous violations.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, she usually does tell us, we'll say, well, property was found in violation back in 2 years ago or whatever.
Or it's a continuation sometimes.
Right. But she's good about informing us of that.
Okay, city attorney's report.
I have no update.
Code enforcement manager's report.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to share, in 2018, the code office actually did 15,744 cases.
Really?
9,853 of those were brought into compliance before our first reinspection.
Good. Well, that's good.
And the officers had recommended 131 cases to the code board. Now, not all of those came, but as they refer them to the board, somewhere in there, if compliance comes in, they're taken off your agenda. So just wanted to thank the board for the support last year. And again, we always do, when Member Richardson mentioned the pictures, I'd actually thought of that when I did that first PowerPoint for today's first, and that was a test run, and I was going to see how Chelsea was with that, but based on what your recommendation is, because it's very easy just to add that in there and then throw in the picture. So thank you for that, and again, we're trying to move this in a better fashion to what y'all like, and we'll just keep moving it forward, and with that, we'll make sure that happens.
I have a question for you. Since Crisco left.
Yes, sir.
Have you had an opportunity to fill that position?
No, sir, we haven't filled that one yet. We're redoing some issues in trying to better realize all that we do, because as you know, we picked up solid waste and stormwater, and so we're kind of reorganizing some of that. So it should be put to closure here very soon.
Okay. Just curious.
Well,
I was going to.
No.
Anything else? Thank you. Y'all have a good evening. What? What a minute, what?
Yeah.
Oh.
And you're supposed to tell us anything you have to report.
Well, I don't have anything. Oh, sorry. I missed that page. Chairman's report. I don't have anything to report at this point. Board members report. Y'all have one? What? Put your thing on.
I'm going to request to be removed as a permanent and move back as an alternate employee or member. My husband has retired, and we are going to be gone a good bit, so I'm anticipating that I would be missing some of the meetings. Okay. So I'd like to be an alternate versus a permanent member. Going forward.
Ms. Ozan, if you wouldn't mind, could you put that in writing to the clerk's office, and they will make sure that the proper procedures take place for council to be informed of this transition?
Sure.
Thank you.
We got to.
Well, thank you, and have fun.
Congratulations.
Be right on retirement.
Thanks.
Bring me a souvenir or two.
In case council does not make an appointment before our next meeting,
I should have said probably March.
Okay.
Yeah, March. Let's just say March, definitely.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.